Well, hey, everybody, Mike Griffith here. Welcome to tonight's Ingles on the Beach show. Really great show ahead, and we are really excited to bring Jordan Rodgers on. Jordan obviously doing a great job with the SEC Network. Great show ahead, and got to throw it out there. The Bachelor, they know him for the Vanderbilt quarterback gig, and now you're seeing him break down these games. He doesn't hold anything back, which I think is just great commentary. Jordan, thanks so much for joining us tonight, man. I can't wait to talk SEC football with you.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate that you sprinkled Vandy in there, although that's probably the minority of people that know me for that.
Well, I tell you what, I got respect for Vandy. I covered Tennessee enough years to know what it meant for guys to play at Vanderbilt, and the Doors won 5 out of 7. They do more with less. I think it's amazing. I think Derek Mason's a great coach. I'm one of these guys that, I got to tell you, I bash the stadium. I say they need to do more for Vanderbilt players because I think, what if somebody poured a ton of money into Vanderbilt football in the city of Nashville? What would happen? I'm going to give you a minute. What would happen if Vanderbilt was funded like Alabama, Jordan?
They'd have a real shot. I mean, look, James Franklin came in there. I think the best thing James did is he didn't take no for an answer. And look, there's a lot of excuses at Vandy, right? The academics, the tradition, it's not there. You can't recruit the same athletes. I say that's BS. You know what I mean? Look, whenever I bring up the facilities thing, I won't get on too big of a soapbox here, but everyone's like, oh yeah, we're never going to be Georgia. We're never going to be Alabama. And I said, for one, I hate kind of thinking. Like, why are you a fan and saying we're never going to be something? You shouldn't limit yourself. But for two, well, we do compete with Kentucky with every recruit we have. And look at their facilities. And look what they've done over the last 5 years. I get it. They're a little bit on a downslope, this year. But they've grown the last 5 years. It went from 2 wins to 10. I mean, so, man, best city in the country in Nashville. You got a great education. They could do something special if they decided they wanted to put even a little bit of money there.
Hey, look at baseball, right? Well, you mentioned Kentucky a second ago. You had the call, Georgia and Kentucky. You did manage to stay awake throughout the whole game. There is a beauty. Like, I'm a throwback guy. I like smashing all football, but man, Jordan, I thought there was some ugly ball in there. What was your take going in, and then just what you watched and kind of your takeaway?
Look, I think the good thing about Georgia and the good thing about Kirby is he's willing to adapt a game plan for what fits that game. You know what I mean? And yeah, you would have loved more than 14 points, but they didn't need it. And he felt like they could control the game on the ground, and they absolutely did. And it wasn't as close as 14-3 the scoreboard even looked like. Georgia controlled that football game. Thought it was impressive what they did at the line of scrimmage. Yeah, there's some things you would love. In this day and age, unless you're scoring 40, you're obviously not scoring enough, which, again, I'm more with the old school too. I like a good defensive battle. So there was some really good there. I think there's a lot to be desired still and a lot to improve. But it was that type of game. There were limited possessions. You weren't going to score 30, 40 points in that game just based on the possessions you had available. So a lot of good and still some to build on, I'm sure that you saw as well.
Oh, yeah. The emphasis to build on. Listen, let's not beat around the bush. You're a former quarterback. Let's get right to it. Stetson Bennett, your thoughts on Stetson, what he does, where his ceiling is at?
Yeah, first and foremost, I love the story. I love the kid. I got a chance to talk to him for the first time last week. Usually in this job, I get to go to practices and fall camp and get to know these players and coaches really well. It's a little different year. So I got to talk to Stetson this last week. I love him. What I like about his game, I did a little breakdown on him. I think he does an unbelievable job pre-snap at recognizing what run fit they need to get into, recognizing the protection, where the hots, where he's leveraged, where he's not. And then I think he does a good job post-snap with eye control and distributing the football. But there are downsides. He's limited in his arm strength. He's limited in their ability to push the ball downfield. And for most games, I'd say for all but against Florida and Alabama this year, that's going to win them football games. But against Florida and Alabama, you're going to need to push the ball downfield. And I thought it was interesting. We talked to Kirby this week, and we just asked him, why Todd, right? What was that first thought of why Todd Monken there? He said, vertical passing game. And I thought that was interesting. That was the very first thing he said was the vertical passing game, which we really haven't seen a ton of. And as I dug through the weeds, I think the biggest issue right now with their passing game is obviously a little bit twofold. It's the youth they have on the outside. In speaking with Monken, he wants to be more multiple in the formations they can do, the motions, how they move pre-snap, which if you turn on football in the NFL, if you watch the Alabama game, that's all football is right now, right? It's eye candy. It's how can you get the defense to have to communicate, get them to move before the snap. So I think Georgia right now, because of the youth and reading between the lines, they're not really trusting of those young guys and being able to execute that and their responsibility for the play. So I think they're kind of a little handcuffed in what they would like to do right now, but still they need to be able to push the ball downfield. They need to be able to move George Pickens around to get him more opportunities. I think Kyrus Jackson is the most dynamic and well-rounded receiver they have, but you got to get George Pickens the ball more. And I think obviously he'll be back against Florida. And I think it'll be a great opportunity to build upon how I think they want to use him, which when I break down film, I break down that Alabama game, and it's off the top of my head. I have my notes in front of me. I think 5 times the entire game was he not lined up in the traditional X position to the boundary, which is fine. You know, that's where that X lives. But, man, I'd love to see him to the field more. I'd love to see him as the 3 or number 2 to a 3-by-1 to the field so he can get matched up on a nickel, on a linebacker in zone, and just see what he can do when you move him around. So that's where I think the limitation is in the vertical passing game. And if I was the coach and reading between the lines and talking to Todd, I think that's where they want to be.
Talking to Jordan Rodgers, he works with the SEC Network. He's an ESPN analyst. He does games. He does analysis. He does color. He does opinions. And, talking about this Georgia offense, some of the limitations, Jordan, when you talk about the vertical pass game, and I couldn't agree more, Stetson doesn't have the strongest arm. I've heard some people say he might be better than Jake Fromm. No, he's really not. Don't make that comparison. But that lack of arm strength, and I'll let you explain, why is that so important to establish those deep routes? What do defenses do once they recognize that your quarterback can't throw that deep out, that deep curl, or that deep post?
Well, look, and I was somebody at quarterback, I didn't have a big arm at all. I mean, I was probably very, very similar to where Stetson's at. And so that creates difficulty. And so what I always saw is everything shrunk towards me, right? The less you can threaten a defense vertically, the less they have to worry about backing up, especially pre-snap, the shorter and the smaller those windows get in the middle of the field and in the perimeter. So it makes it much more difficult to execute your offense. You have to have at least the threat of being able to take the defense, take the top off, because every defensive coach, nothing gets behind you. I mean, that's the one thing. If there's any defensive coach out there who says, what's the one thing you want to do? Not get beat over the top, right? So defenses want to keep everything in front of them. And when they're able to do that and we're not threatened like that, then the defense condenses around the ball. And what does that kind of trickle into? The run game, right? The more guys around the offensive line, more guys around the box, the less your run game will be successful. Obviously, they were against Kentucky. I just think, and I'm going to give an opinion here. I believe, I know, shocking, right? I believe that one of the issues with Georgia, and I think they want to fix this, and I think that's one reason Todd's here and one reason they're headed in that direction, is I think there's been a little bit of an inability to adapt offensively. Look at what Nick Saban did with Tua and their ability to say, you know what, here's what we used to do. We're going to be all RPO. We're going to be all spread now, right? Adapting to the talent you have on your roster. One thing that bothers me, because I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm not a Georgia fan. But it's one thing I look at and I go, you know what, man, how did they let Justin Fields go? Why was he not able to be that player here? Why did Jacob Eason walk? And I think the complexity of this Georgia offense, which it is complex, and that's why Stetson is the signal caller right now,
right?
Because he can do what they need him to do before the snap and after the snap, which is a lot of alerts, a lot of double calls, 2 plays called, so he's got to get them in the right play. It's very complex. It also sets or limits the ability to get your most talented player on the field. And I think that's why Justin Fields, even when he was at Georgia, remember when he used to come in, there'd be a mental mistake, ball would be on the ground, he'd miss a motion. I mean, he didn't look like the Justin Fields that we see at Ohio State. Why? Because the offense wasn't fitting what his strength was, which was playing wide open, playing fast. I think there's more talent on this Georgia roster behind Stetson Bennett, but right now, this offense, Stetson's the best suited to run this,
right?
Which there's going to be a ceiling on that.
Right. To get you in the office to run that playbook. Kirby likes the quarterback, the coach on the field that can adapt to the play call. Kirby's very much we're going to take what they're going to give us versus this is who we are and this is what we're going to do. Even though you could make the argument, and you have, that maybe Georgia with all the talent could probably get away with more of that mindset where the quarterback claps, looks to the sideline and makes the call, as opposed to that quarterback that's playing 3-dimensional chess. And trying to do the pre-snap read. So, and that's where they're at. Now, I know you did your homework. I know you had a Dwan Mathis package, and I know you were ready to talk about JT Daniels. Give us your breakdown on those 2 guys. You've done your homework on these guys.
Look, I thought it was very interesting the way the coaches spoke. And again, because we don't get to go to practice in this day and age of COVID, so I don't get to get my eyes on him. DeJuan, and actually the emphasis for one of the biggest emphasis for Stetson, and a big emphasis for why DeJuan is number 2, is the ability to make plays with your feet. And the coaches kept coming back to the young receivers, the inconsistencies on the outside and running the pass concepts that we need to. Right now, we need a quarterback that can bail us out. Stetson's done a good job of that. DeJuan is second behind Stetson in his ability to make things happen with his feet. But they also mentioned that of the 3, including JT Daniels now in this conversation, JT might be the most cerebral. And also it's very obvious that he's the most talented of the throwers. And so I really want to know what's going on inside there, because if it's me, I left that Alabama game. And again, I freaking love Stetson Bennett. And he reminds me of me because I wasn't very talented either. So I hate that I'm about to say this. But if it was me after that game, I go, Stetson can win us every game except for this Alabama game. And you know what? Stetson might even be able to win us the Florida game, right? And depending on how our defense does. We can get to that in a second. But if we're going to beat Alabama, I think we need more talent at that position. And that's where again, I don't know JT's knee. I don't know the other limitations, having not seen practice and been there. But to me, the talent in his ability to throw the football would go, that's what we're going to need. Let's put it in now. Let's hope our defense gets us there, so we'll be ready at that point. If that's our goal, if that's where we see this team, then we need to be ready when that happens. Not when, as we've seen in second halves against Alabama, when all of a sudden we can't do anything on offense. And now what happens, right? So that's what I see out of that equation. Right now, Stetson's making enough plays with his legs, and right now up here, he gets them in everything they need to. I think that's the limitation with DeJuan. Just he hasn't been in an offense like this. He hasn't had to make protection checks in high school and understand where hots are coming from and understand why I run to the 3 technique in this run and the 1 technique here, or what 4 eyes mean. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in the position. So I think that's why Stetson, I think that's the limitation of DeJuan. Again, I'm not sure why JT's 3 if he's one of the most cerebral and most talented, but I'm not there at practice.
Well, we're right here in Athens. We're not at practice either. I think we're all trying to figure that out, Jordan. Jordan Rodgers, the SEC Network, joined us tonight on the Ingles on the Beat show. And there is a lot of second guessing right now. And, when you're the backup quarterback's always the most popular guy. Listen, Georgia's 4-1. They're favored to win this game. I've got my question. Jordan, about Kirby Smart. He's a guy, I think you probably faced one of his defenses. And what kind of tactician, just for the Georgia fans, because some people, I don't want to say a lot of people, they're starting to jump off the boat. Oh my gosh, it's Mark Richt all over. And, oh, by the way, Mark Richt was a Hall of Fame coach, but oh my gosh, we're not getting past. Explain to these folks just what type of technician in football mind Kirby Smart has.
There's nothing more frustrating than going against a defense that is, for one, unbelievably fundamental, right? There's not a better coach defense in this country, I believe, than what Kirby Smart has. And that's tough because they don't give you those – they don't fall into the eye candy. If you're a good quarterback that can look off, I hated playing defenses like this because I couldn't move you to where I wanted to go with the football because they're too fundamentally sound. The other thing that they present that's an issue for a quarterback is what they do post-snap. So similar to kind of what Florida does as well, because they're so well coached, they can disguise things pre-snap. And so for a quarterback, when you're used to seeing something, this means cover 2. This guy's going to roll. That means I'm going to get cover 3, or they're going to roll down into some kind of man or zone. They don't do that. There's a lot of issues pre-snap that they present that mess with the quarterback's eyes, and it makes them react post-snap and react very quickly. And then obviously you've seen what they've been able to do in the run game and how they're moving guys pre-snap, right? That mess with Auburn big time, moving those guys over a gap. I mean, they do a lot that makes offenses think pre-snap, which is what the offense wants to do to the defense. So I think that it's remarkable what Kirby does. They're the best coach defense, I believe, in the country. And I think they're going to really present a problem for Florida. So I wouldn't jump off this. I wouldn't jump off the bandwagon yet, Dog fans. I mean, I know we were just talking about the offense. It seems doom and gloom right now, but hold on. You guys still have, I know Alabama had their way, but that's Alabama. Let's put them in a different category. Florida's not yet what Alabama is. So there's still a lot of good to look forward to on Saturday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I was going to ask you, we've seen some injuries for Georgia. Richard LeCount, first and foremost. By the way, for the Georgia fans watching on Dog Nation, Richard LeCount has tweeted. He's confirmed he's okay. For those of you following the story, Richard LeCount was involved in a motorcycle accident on Saturday night, shortly after the team got back down south of the campus on Macon Highway. Richard wearing a helmet, thank goodness. He hit a car that was turning in front of him. The motorcycle and him carried hit another car. He was rushed to a hospital. He was in intensive care. He's been moved to a regular room. He's in stable condition now. Kirby Smart's updated us on Richard LeCount, but it looks like he's probably going to be out at least a few weeks, if not for the season, Jordan. You talk about the fundamental defense and Richard LeCount. Let's talk about what a great safety like Richard LeCount means to a football team.
It is paramount. Like leadership, communication. I think that's the kind of guy that sets a tone. And if there's anything that's really important on game day, it's the tone and the swagger, for lack of a better term, or to be a millennial for a second. That is so important. Now, I'll say it's even exponentially more important this week against Florida, because when I flip on the film, and I just broke down the game again, I always watch them a couple times. First time I like to watch it because I don't really watch it on TV. I like to watch my Exos, my coach's cut. I like to get a good feel for what happened, see what I think I see, and I like to watch it back another time. When I watch Florida back, they're doing some really good things in their formations and how they're getting matchups for Kyle Pitts. And that is what Richard LeCount would be sitting back there going, hey, let's move this over. You get, I mean, that is the problem, right? You lost your center fielder back there that's directing everything. You lost the guy that sees, communicates, pushes coverage, communicates things on the back end. And Florida right now is doing as good of a job, I think, as Alabama in creating problems with formations, especially with where they put Kyle Pitts. I mean, the first 11 plays last week for Florida, they got Kyle Pitts a reception and a matchup on a safety, on a corner, and on a linebacker. They went 4-by-1 with him split wide receiver on a corner. He ran a slant, caught it. They went nub side with 2 tight ends, and he ran an outside release fade on a linebacker, caught it. They went nub side 3-by-1, him manned up on a safety with a 2-way go, ran an out route, caught it. I mean, they did a great job of creating matchups that they wanted. And that is what Georgia's going to need to be worried about. And not having Richard back there, having Monty banged up, Quay Walker was banged up in the game against Kentucky. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that are the adjusters, the communicators that either aren't going to be out there or are maybe going to be limited. So that's an issue that I would worry about if I was a Georgia fan for sure.
Right. And here's the update just for you folks to know. Kirby Smart spoke today on a Zoom press conference at noon. Here's the update he gave on everyone. I know there's been reports that Jordan Davis is out the next 3 games. Kirby today said he's day-to-day, said he's hopeful. I mean, I don't know which way I lean on this. I don't think the head coach wants to telegraph if a 6'6", 345-pound nose tackle isn't going to be there. I think he wants Florida to believe he's going to be there. Whether he is or isn't with his elbow in a brace, I don't know how effective he can be. He takes up a lot of space. He's athletic. I think he's one of the 2 most irreplaceable players, along with Richard LeCount on the defense. Julian Rochester is out for the season. The 5th-year senior defensive tackle suffered a torn ACL. So your 2 interior defensive linemen are out. Those are your anchors on the run defense. That's going to press Jalen Carter, the young freshman. And listen, he's talented and he's strong, but technique-wise, he's not in the same league with either one of those guys. Quay Walker, Jordan mentioned a minute ago. You saw him with that neck. It looked like a stinger when Richie came in and helped him clean up on a tackle. Kirby says today that Quay's going to be ready to go. That's important because, as Jordan alluded to, we all know Monty Rice was a game-time decision for Alabama. They're really trying to limit his snaps. He's got a foot injury. So you're going to see Quay and Monty splitting those reps at middle linebacker. Not sure who's going to be more effective, but they're going to have to try to get their way through that. Lewis Seen, the talented sophomore. Listen, this kid added 15 pounds. He's a headhunter. He's turned out to be every bit the top 50 recruit. Georgia fans love him. Sprained his ankle. Kirby says he's going to be good to go. But again, when we're talking about playmakers like Tony, if you're a tick off, if you're a little off, you're a lot off. So let's keep an eye on Lewis Seen. Ben Cleveland, big Ben Cleveland, seen limping out. When isn't he limping? Kirby says he's a go. One of them big uglies in the trenches. They need him for that push. They've got to run the ball in this game. George Pickens did not make the trip. George and Kenny McIntosh, surprise scratches, because Kirby said they practiced the week before. I don't know how much they would have used George anyway. Fact of the matter is he'll suit up for this game. I mean, I just can't imagine George not playing. Same with Kenny, the knee he hurt on a kickoff return. Ding, ding, ding. Still don't like that, Jordan. I guess I'll get your opinion on that in a second. Tyreek Stevenson, he's a go. He left the game late. He'll be a go. He's very important. He's the one athlete on this team that has a shot of staying on the hip pocket of Pitts. He's the best matchup for Pitts. Tyreek Stevenson, Tyreek the Freak from Miami, and Matt Landers. I know Georgia fans sigh, but this guy had a great offseason. And give him a chance. They're saying the singing frog is ready to perform in front of a crowd, Matt Landers. So, Jordan, before we're going to bring Mike Bianchi and Edgar Thompson on from the Orlando Sentinel just a few minutes after the break. But I want to wade into a little SEC-wide talk with you. I want to start with Alabama. I made this statement, and I didn't think this was any revelation that when you lose your most dynamic skill position player, it hurts your championship hopes. But, to me, Waddle is just different. And at the time, Georgia was healthy on defense, and I said, aha, Bulldogs can play him different. But your thoughts just in general on putting a guy like Jalen Waddle back deep on kickoff in a game like Tennessee?
It's tough. I feel like Nick Saban is a little more old school than others, and he wants – I think Jalen Waddle was the one guy maybe he would have wanted back there and was okay being back there, which is crazy because I'm not a fan of it. I mean, how many times in an entire season do you have a kick return or a punt return that dictate a game?
Right.
Not many, right? and so just the risk reward for me isn't there. So that was tough to see. I hated to see that. I did hear what you said. I think if there's any year that they were built to weather this, I do believe they're built to weather it. But again, it's not like they got better all of a sudden because Waddle's not out there. They definitely took a step back, but I think they will end up weathering the storm.
Yeah, to me, the thing about Alabama that just blew me away, and we're talking about Alabama because, listen, this Georgia program has risen to a level now where we're talking about championships. It's not about having fun in Jacksonville or, oh, gosh, we won 8 or 9 games. Isn't that great? This is an all-or-nothing championship program, and Alabama is the obstacle. Now, Florida comes first. We're going to talk a lot of Gators and Dogs here in a few minutes, but I want to get Jordan's take on this Alabama team. Just how unbeatable are they right now? Let me tell you, man, Najee Harris. I said this. I think Najee's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and I think this offensive line is better than LSU's. Now, I ain't putting Mac anywhere near Joe Burrow, but your take on this Alabama offense right now?
They're unreal. I think what's the craziest is I think they could be just as elite if they decide they want to run the ball 55 times a game, just as like I think they could be just as elite if they decide they want to throw the ball 70 times a game. I mean, they can line up and be who they want to be, and that is scary. And that's why I think that was one reason I said they can weather the storm of Waddle, because when I look at this year, the job that Steve Sarkisian is doing pre-snap, motioning, shifting, giving different looks, as I was talking about earlier, was evident against Georgia. I mean, I did a breakdown of two back-to-back plays, the long 90-yard touchdown to Jalen Waddle. They came back the very next time, ran the exact same formation, exact same motion, made one small adjustment to the play and had a tight end open for 10 yards. Now you say it's only 10 yards, but if you start stealing 10 yards whenever you want to steal 10 yards, that's what makes you unstoppable. Yes, the big-time plays kill you, but so do the plays where you knock off 10 yards here, 12 yards there, 8 yards here. I mean, so he's doing an unbelievable job because last year it was much more – we got 4 guys that can beat anybody. So there's going to be a matchup on one year. Let's line them up. Let's go RPO, and someone's going to win. They didn't have to get too creative scheme-wise. It's scary how good they are scheme-wise on offense. Like I said, they could choose to run it 50 times and still be as good. So they're a beast.
It's the value of the continuity. It's everything.
Totally.
And to be fair to Georgia, and look, I know Georgia fans are disappointed, upset. Brand new offensive coordinator, brand new terminology, brand new playbook, no spring. Walk-on quarterback.
Your quarterback that was 4th or 5th on the depth chart. I mean, like the fact that they went as far as they did in the game that was as close as it was for a while with Alabama, with a dude who was a walk-on that left that came back. I mean, like, come on, that shouldn't have happened. But that's a testament to how good they are everywhere else around that position.
Oh, there's no question. And I said this. It's more than cool story, bro. When you beat Tennessee and you beat Auburn when you're Stetson. I mean, look. This guy, just looking at him, it looks like he's ready to pinch himself every 10 seconds. Like, is this really, really happening? I was at Jones Junior College. I was a backup, and now I'm Stet the Jet, and I'm doing these interviews.
Mike, I said it on the game. We talked to Munkin and Kirby, and I said, we were asking about the story, and Kirby goes, look, at one point Stetson came to us and said, I think in fall camp, he said, I think I deserve to be in this quarterback competition. And Kirby goes, yeah, we don't think so. we know what you got in you. We got 4 other guys that we need to figure out who they're going to be this season for us. What? And now he's the guy that you're hitching the wagons to. So it's a crazy story. But, I mean, again, testament to how good they are around him.
Great stuff. Hey, listen, we're going to take our short break. Jordan's agreed to stay over. Jordan, you asked for it. You're going to get it. When we come back, Edgar Thompson, Mike Bianchi are going to join us right now, though. I want to take a moment to recognize Ingles. You know, this COVID-19 deal has been tough on all of us. It's been a struggle. There's been hurdle after hurdle. We talk about how do these teams adapt? How do we adapt as a society? And, you know, we take it for granted when we go into these Ingles stores and we see these frontline workers getting it done, supplying the goods day after day, the friendly service. We need to take a moment and recognize everything that Ingles has done to help our society get through this very difficult time.
It's in our hearts to feel for you. There's been ups and downs, turnarounds, good days and some bad. But we stand together for worse and for better. We'll always have your back with open arms, heart to heart, hand in hand. Community strong.
Welcome back to the show, and Ingles always got some great deals for you. Speaking of great deals, how about the SEC office and how they handled Florida with this massive brawl? You want a great deal? Greg Sankey's got a deal for you, Dan Mullen. Go to midfield and get everybody fired up. Let's brawl. $25,000. I haven't done the math yet. I'm going to ask my Florida friends. I brought 2 of them on here. I'm not sure. Just in case one of them doesn't know the answer, I know the other well. Just kidding. Mike Bianchi, columnist, radio show host in Orlando, longtime friend of mine, NASCAR expert as well. Might have to get into some of that there, Mike. Just kidding. And Edgar Thompson, you want to talk about a veteran scribe on the beat. Edgar, you wanted Jordan Rodgers. I told him you had questions. He agreed to stick around just to answer your questions. So this is one for the journalism profession for Jordan Rodgers. We appreciate it. But Mike, Edgar, let me ask you, what was your response to the SEC's action about that Florida brawl?
Go ahead, Mike.
I'll go first on this. I was astounded it was only a $25,000 fine, especially when you compare it to what happened to Lane Kiffin. Was it last week or the week before when he got a $25,000 fine for essentially just retweeting some criticism of the SEC officials after that game with Auburn? I thought Dan Mullen would get a substantial fine. I didn't think he would get suspended. I think he deserved a more substantial fine after sort of escalating what happened on the field against Missouri. I just thought the SEC didn't have the stomach to give Dan Mullen or the Gators a more substantial penalty.
Edgar, you've been covering this league a while. What were your thoughts about the Mullen fine and the action of the Florida players at halftime?
Yeah, I told someone that with the money he saved, he should go buy Scott Strickland a nice bottle of bourbon because after this month that Dan's put Scott through, I mean, he needs it. I mean, this is just the latest thing. I mean, Dan's just, it's one thing after another lately with him. I mean, it was the 90,000 pack the swamp. And then the thing about he's upset because tomorrow the NCAA is mandated a day off for football activities. Now, I'm not saying that I think that's the greatest thing in the world. I mean, I think the NCAA can do a little bit more for players than acknowledge their right to vote, but that's another story. But Dan has been ripping them for a couple of days about that. It's just not a good look. But then this really to me was maybe the one that was most disappointing because this was action. This wasn't his words. And Dan is, his role is to be the leader and set the tone and also, reflect well on the university. And whether he was going out there to be peacekeeper or not, it didn't work.
Yeah, no doubt. Kirby brought up that all but 9 Georgia players have already voted, by the way. So the NCAA's intent was good. It was pure. But, it's the Georgia. Do we really believe these players aren't going to practice some way, some shape? And Jordan, I asked you in the first half of the show to talk about Kirby Smart and your thoughts on Kirby. I want to get your take on Dan Mullen. You know, you have the opportunity to see the spectrum of coaches now from your seat in the SEC Network studios. Your thoughts on Mullen, what he's done with the Gators, and what you think is ahead?
I think actually in this day and age, one of the rare traits that we don't see enough of, and I think often gets overlooked when you hire a head coach, is the true ability to develop players. And I think the best coaches do that. And honestly, I think Dan does a really good job of developing the quarterback position. And I think that's an art. And I think in this day and age, you can get caught in a sexy scheme that works for 1 or 2 years with the right guy, and you miss on a guy that can really develop quarterbacks. And I think he does a really good job of that. He's a guy that I would like to play for from a personality standpoint. I can't say that about every coach. There's some that, again, me and James Franklin butted heads all the time. So I don't know if back then I would have said I wanted to play for James, even though I love James now. So yeah, I mean, I like Dan. I think he was the right hire for that job. And I think he does a great job of developing talent, which I think we're seeing in Kyle Trask, a guy that was overlooked in high school, that was overlooked and beat out here at Florida. And then all of a sudden has developed into a guy that I think is a front runner for the Heisman right now.
Mike, you go way back. You know, that's a nice way of saying we're getting old. You know, you were covering this for your Gators. I seem to remember us walking very late through the streets of Gainesville after games at times. What about the job that Mullen's done? Is he the answer? Is he the guy we've all been waiting for? You've been around this Florida program as long as anybody. What were your thoughts when Dan was hired? And have you been pleased with where he's at right now?
Well, as a football coach, yes. I mean, until recently, with some of the off-the-wall stuff he's been doing off the field, yeah, I think Dan Mullen has done a tremendous job at Florida. He was hired to fix the offense. The offense was abysmal under Jim McElwain. It was abysmal under Will Muschamp. It was abysmal in Urban Meyer's last year, and he has fixed the offense. They're one of the top offenses in the country right now. You know, Kyle Trask is a Heisman Trophy contender right now. But when Spurrier came in, the thing he did was he beat Georgia. That was the thing he had to do, was get over the Georgia hump, and he did it immediately. Dan Mullen has to get over the Georgia hump if Gator fans are going to truly accept him. If he doesn't beat Georgia this year, that's when the grumbling is going to start. As well as he's done, the grumbling will start after this year if he doesn't beat Georgia.
Well, listen, guys, I don't know if they don't beat Georgia now. I mean, I don't know what else you want. You know, the starting safety and team captain is gone. The nose tackle at best will be wearing an elbow brace. You know, they're playing a walk-on quarterback. They still haven't figured out who. You
sound like Vince Dooley sandbagging up there in Athens.
This is real. This is real. This is real stuff. I'm telling. They're not playing the best running back. This guy's career-long run is 29 yards in like 160 carries. You got to go back to there's over 300 running back carries, over 300 since a Georgia back has run for more than 26 yards on a carry. I know because I'm documenting it, and I'm saying, listen, the Zamir White high school tapes are great, but in practice, this guy ain't getting by the second level unless nobody's there, and he almost fell down on the 22-yard run. The best runner is the freshman, and they're not feeding the moose. Edgar, we talked about Trask a second ago. You had questions for Jordan about this. First, you give me your observations on Trask, and then turn this on Jordan, because you had questions for our SEC Network friend tonight.
Yeah, sure. I mean, Kyle Trask has been one of the best stories in college football for the past year. It's unbelievable. Now, I don't know how he got lost in the shuffle the way he did. I mean, whether it was a personality thing, whether it was a potential thing in the case of Felipe Franks. Now, Felipe's playing well for Arkansas, so maybe he just did need a change of scenery because he's played very well for them. But, I mean, Kyle, we used to go out there to practice and just see it. I mean, his accuracy, how quick the ball came out. I mean, catchable football. And we'd be like, why isn't this guy playing? And they cycled through Austin Appleby and Luke Del Rio and Felipe with several benchings. And then finally he got his shot. And then it was like, okay, well, this is the best quarterback that they've had for a long time. I mean, you got to go back to Tim Tebow statistically to find a better QB. And really, I mean, there hasn't been anyone since then, honestly, that really even can challenge what Kyle's doing right now. The thing I like best about Kyle, and I was curious about this with Jordan, The thing with me, with Kyle, I mean, look, decision-making, accuracy are probably the two biggest traits of a quarterback needs. But man, this kid does not get rattled. The other night, they go 3 possessions without a score. There was a pick 6 in there. First time all season. The offense is sputtering. It doesn't look good. Next thing you know, I mean, I think he completed 6 of his next 7, including 2 touchdowns. I mean, he does that all the time. It's like he just can have slow starts or have a little lull and just never seems phased. And that seems to be a rare quality in a quarterback.
He's extremely resilient. And it's, you know what? Yeah, I'd like to dig in and say it's something that's so innate, built in certain people. And yes, I believe that's part of it. But the quarterbacks that do that the best are the guys that go through their reads consistently the best. Think about it. When you're rattled as a quarterback, everything starts to speed up, right? And if you already have a tendency to not know where my eyes should go post snap or not be great at getting to 2 or getting to 3, you think you're going to do that after you get hit in the face? Never. So what I love watching Kyle, and a couple of times, I think that run you were talking about, I actually pulled 2 clips today when I was watching it. He hit 2 big seam routes. One of them, I think, was a 25, 30-yard gain. The other one was to Tony for the touchdown up the seam to the left. And both times he did a great job of coming or looking off, stepping up in the pocket and ripping it. And earlier in the game, he had been stepping up in the pocket. He got hit on the interception. He'd been rattled a couple times. It's like the fact that he just still consistently goes, I'm supposed to go here, then bam, there. I mean, those are the quarterbacks that do it the best. The guys that don't get rattled are the ones that when they're not rattled, go through their reads the best. And when they are rattled, it's still just like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do on this play. I mean, over and over. And that's why I think I attribute that to Dan, because Dan coaches a quarterback in that manner. I mean, you go here to here. I mean, it's just, and that's what practice is. You know your answers. You always know where you're supposed to go with the ball. And so it gets ingrained in you. And when you're getting hit in the face, you revert to your bad habits, right? Well, if your bad habits and your bad practices, you're still going through your reads and knowing exactly what you're supposed to do here. You maybe miss a throw or 2 here. Everybody does. But when your bad practices don't include you not knowing where to go with the football, that's what you see. And that's why I love
man. I got to tell you, though, you mentioned Tebow in this conversation. I'm just not ready. Dude, I'm not ready to go there. You know, Mike, Tebow.
Well, I'm saying since Tebow.
I know, but I don't even want him in the same conversation. I don't even want him in the same 3-minute span. I mean, Mike, when I watched Tebow, I mean, I watched a guy that literally willed his team to win. I watched a guy that willed an NFL team that had and I'm a Broncos fan, so I know that they had no business winning this game. And Tebow has got people. You covered the dude, man. I mean, there's no way Trask can there's no way Trask can enter Tebow territory. Am I right here? Am I wrong?
No, I think you're wrong. I'm going to tell you, yes, wow. Tebow did lead the Broncos. I guess he led the Broncos, even though he only completed 47% of his passes.
It was a big one, though, in overtime.
Yeah, no. I mean, if with Trevor Lawrence seemingly out of the picture right now for the Heisman, if Kyle Trask can lead this team over Georgia and somehow, and he's already a Heisman Trophy contender, if he can lead this team into the SEC championship game and somehow, some way beat Alabama, hell yeah, he's in the Tebow conversation. Yes.
What did you say? Beat Alabama? Are you in the? Are we like?
I'm not saying. I said if. I didn't say would.
I mean, I would agree. If by some stretch, if maybe, you know what, you might be right. Maybe Saban will put Najee Harris back to return kicks and Devontae Smith the next game. Maybe he'll play Devontae out there on the punt return team, because after all, the Alabama fans say you got 2 or 3 guys just like Jalen Waddle. No, but seriously, man. I mean, the stakes are high, and Edgar, you know, I got to ask you this: the home field. And, you know, nobody's going to the games, but looks like we just lost Edgar's picture there. Not sure what's happening there. Edgar, you there? I'll throw this out there for Jordan. What does home field?
I'm here.
Back. Okay. What does home field really mean? I'll be honest, guys. I was shocked. I promised myself I wasn't going to go on a tirade tonight. I was shocked that Georgia did not say, you know what, it's COVID. We're not traveling any more than we had to. 3 weeks ago, Florida's administration comes out and said, we got COVID on the road. There's more risk when you travel. and Georgia has kept the throttle down, speeding down to those parties, whatever extra money they're getting paid that they believe it's worth to put their players at risk.
Are you still trying to move the game out of Jackson?
I'm not moving anything, man.
He beats this one to death. I've
They
heard
didn't
this
take
rant.
this. Are you shocked by this, Edgar?
You're bringing me on here to listen to this rant again? I mean, I'm forced to listen to it again.
What does it mean? Is it an advantage for the Gators that they're not coming to Athens, though?
Certainly it is, but it would be an advantage if the Gators got him here in the swamp. Look, the game's in Jacksonville, man. Just deal with it. I mean, maybe it'll change someday. It's like, is Kirby giving you a kickback on this?
Look, I'm just walking in off the street saying, I've covered Alabama, Auburn, Tennessee, now Georgia. I've covered Alabama, Auburn, home and home. Tennessee, Florida, epic, swamp and Neyland. This game in Jacksonville, wine and cheese, split crowd, zero environment on game day. Now, I hear the parties are great. If you can stay up late it's like a NASCAR, I guess. They got the RVs and all that. Wonderful. But we're at a point now where these coaches and these teams need these home games, A, to recruit. Huge recruiting weekend that you're punting. And 2, now that we're seeing COVID guys, the infrastructure of your city. One of the great things, it is one of the Athens, and you guys know this, maybe from coming up here for basketball, but this is one of the greatest SEC cities as far as the restaurants and downtown. They got 4 or 5 games a year to make it. They got to make do. They don't even have commercial flights coming into Athens because they play this stupid game in Jacksonville. They got an Ocean 365. So all I'm saying is this. If you're Kirby Smart, and I understand the logic, Jordan, I'll go to you. He wants the recruiting weekend, and I believe there's a clear advantage playing at home. What are your thoughts, Jordan? You've covered a lot of rivalry games, Georgia, Florida, Jacksonville, home and home, and future.
I think it all should be home and home. I think that's what college football is. I mean, I understand the reasoning behind going to neutral sites, but I love the home environment. I love playing on the road as an athlete. I love being home against rivals. Like, I think that's what makes college football. I would push for all of that. I would push for college football playoffs to be at higher ranking home teams outside the national championship. Like, I'm all for that. I think that's what college football is.
No, that's not what college football is about. College football is about history. It's about heritage. It's about rivalries that you write books about. I've got 4 books on my damn bookshelf about the Florida-Georgia rivalry, the border war in Jacksonville. If that game was home and home, you know what it would be? It would be another big game.
Then they'd write new books about it.
No, they wouldn't.
Be a whole series of new books. We got those old books already. We got plenty of history.
There's no Alabama, Tennessee books, okay? There's Florida, Georgia books.
Hey, I think Army's on line 1. They say they want to schedule. It used to be good, You want to talk about tradition. Let's get Army. Hey, can we get the Sewanee program resurrected while we're talking about tradition? And oh, by the way, you Florida guys don't even recognize the game that was played in Macon. How ridiculous is that? These schools can't even agree on a game that was played in Macon. The whole thing is preposterous. The bottom line is,
Griff, why does Georgia want to play the game in Athens? The last time it was played in Athens, Spurrier hung 50 on the Dogs. Why do you want that again?
Hey, I got news for you. Spurrier's gone now. And Florida doesn't own the SEC anymore. And I'm going to tell you, Jordan, this is great because before, and you're the young guy here, but this Gator swag that's coming out of Bianchi has been missing. And I miss the Florida swag. When Florida's good, it's good for the SEC. Now, I'm not saying that's why Florida and Alabama and Ole Miss are the only 3 schools that don't have back-to-back home games. And I'm not saying that the SEC office dialed up this front-loaded schedule with Georgia and scheduled Florida and Tennessee for the last game because they thought maybe Florida would be in the SEC. I'm guessing they drew out of a hat or something. But what I am saying is there's a lot of television sets in Florida, and when these Gators are hot, people are watching. And I'll ask you that, George. You came up high school prospect. You saw a little bit of this Gator swag, didn't you?
Absolutely. And actually, funny story, I grew up in a Florida State family. So back when that was a really big rivalry, we watched those games every single year. So I remember that well. Even though I was a Pac-10 boy growing up, I was out on the West Coast, California. But we had a family friend that played under Bowden, so I was a big Florida State fan. And so we watched a ton of the Florida State. So Absolutely. Even as a California kid, I knew what that was about.
Edgar, you're in Gainesville. Are you feeling that type of swag now? Are you seeing the pride? I mean, that was an impressive win. And, oh, by the way, it must be nice to only play one game in 3 weeks. That's going to be a very fresh and feisty Florida football team that takes the field on Saturday. Your thoughts about the confidence in Gainesville and just kind of the mood. Give me the mood there if you could.
Well, it isn't like we're out circulating like normal. I mean, I do go to the gym, and everybody there's defending Dan, thinking he was playing peacekeeper the other day, of course. So I give up on that one. But look, they're feeling a lot better than they were, because I think after the Texas A&M game there was a lot of concern. It was like, this team I think's overrated and the defense is terrible, and Ty Grantham needs to go. Which I've been saying, come on, Ty Grantham is good. Okay. He can't get out there and make the plays. And yes, he does sell out on take some chances on defense, and you get burned when that happens. But I think the guy's a terrific coordinator, and you've seen him, observed him for years. He's good, but they're feeling a lot better now. I mean, the defense showed up. Trask did what he does. And we haven't even mentioned Kadarius Toney yet. And that was a question I actually had for Jordan. I mean, I think that he's the most dynamic player in the SEC now that Waddle's injured. I said this to Griff earlier. I mean, this guy's incredible. We saw the electric moves. There would be an occasional excitement from this kid. Now he's dominating. I mean, he's shredding defenses. He has 7 touchdowns in 4 games. He had 3 in his entire career coming into this season.
He's an every down slot receiver now. I mean, last couple of years, it was like, man, this kid's so talented. But the only way they got him the ball was little trick gimmick plays, right? I mean, he'd be in for 1 or 2. If he was in running a jet sweep, it always went to him. They'd throw him a tunnel screen. But, like, he wasn't an every down route runner. He wasn't an every down know where I'm supposed to be and what my responsibility is. Now he is. Now he's really dangerous. And when all the eyes are pulled over on Kyle Pitts, that leaves the slot guy on a linebacker, on a nickel back, on a safety rolling down, and that's a walking mismatch. He's too athletic for that. He's too good with the ball in his hands, and Kyle's giving him good opportunity. So he's awesome.
You guys missed this before you.
Hey, can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
Last thing, what are they doing with Kyle Pitts, by the way, Jordan? Because he's, he did have the foot ailment maybe in the second half of A&M. He looked fine the other night. He didn't look slowed down at all. Our team's just absolutely just bracket covering him. I mean, 2 and 3 guys. I mean, what are they doing? I don't know enough.
Teams are trying to. The difficulty, and I was telling Mike this earlier, the difficulty is Dan Mullen and Brian Johnson doing an unbelievable job of creating mismatches with formations. And I'll say this again. I charted the first 11 plays last week, and 3 times he caught balls. He was matched up against a linebacker, a safety, and a corner. They went 4-by-1. Had him backside one-on-one with a ton of green grass on a corner. He runs a slant route wide open because everybody bumps over for the 4 receivers. That leaves him a lot of room. Beautiful. He goes 3-by-1 on a nub, which means he's attached to the boundary. And that's really difficult. Mike, you're going to see that. Georgia will see Kyle Pitts by himself on one side on a nub because you line up a safety over the top of him. He's got a 2-way go. You line up a corner outside and a safety over the top of him. Now you have one less guy for the 3 receivers over there. It creates a terrible mismatch for a team to go, what do I do with this guy, right? He caught a ball on an out route on a safety there. And another time he had a linebacker on him matched up because they put him into the boundary with an extra tight end, and he caught a seam route or a fade route. So Dan's doing a great job of finding ways to it never look the same in where Kyle is. And so a team goes, we want to bracket him, but now he's over here, and we're like, wait, they got 3 receivers over here, so we got to go 3 over 3, but then now we can't bracket him, and now we have 1 less in the box, and they can run the ball. Like, it's just he's creating conflict everywhere they line him up.
And this is where you miss Richard LeCount, the very special guy. And we saw him on Pitts a lot last year. That was the adjustment at halftime. Richie moved up. Tyreek Stevenson, a very talented guy from South Florida. He's going to probably be the answer guy or try to be the answer guy with some help.
I think they might follow. I think he might follow Pitts for a while. They're going to have someone follow him at some point. They need to, just because you can't guarantee you bracket him every time. At some point, someone will be following him. I'm not sure it's a corner or if it's Tyreek, but one of them will.
Yeah, and as Jordan points out, that creates a lot of problems elsewhere. Mike, you've seen enough Georgia now. You were there when Spurrier dominated, the old ball coach. And, I still love talking to Steve Spurrier. I still get some great insights from him. I call him every now and then. We're going to have an award named after him, a Coach of the Year award for the first-year Coach of the Year. We're going to be really excited to announce that in January. We haven't announced that publicly yet, so technically you didn't hear this, but I'm excited about enough about it to announce it tonight.
But nobody watches this?
Because Spurrier, just a few hundred people, maybe 20 or 30 or 40, 50,000. But Spurrier to me was amazing. But we're about where Georgia is, Mike. I mean, we're not seeing Kirby against Spurrier. Like you said, we've seen a few clown shows here against Kirby. Where do you think Georgia is right now? And what questions do you have about this Georgia? You've been around this rivalry enough. What are your questions coming into this game?
Well, the questions I have about Georgia are probably the same questions Georgia fans have about Georgia. I mean, we're in an offensive explosion right now in college football. Georgia's offense, at least for the last couple of years, has not. Alabama has the top 3 offense in the country. Florida is top 13 or 14 in the country in offense. I just think we're in an era in college football now where the slobber-knocking SEC defense, that's great, and you need to play good defense, but in today's college football with the no huddle and the fast break and the tempo, you have to have an explosive offense. In Georgia right now, what are they? They're 61st in the country, I think, in total offense this year. They were not very good last year on offense. So that's the question I have about Georgia. Is Kirby Smart, the defensive-minded coach, is he going to open up that offense and let it progress to where other offenses are right now?
Now, he'll tell you they're not limited. We asked him today, are you nope, not limited. Feels like they can, I mean, I get it. And sometimes these coaches, it's like nobody's going to tell the emperor he's got no clothes. You want to go in there and tell him? I'm not going to go in there and tell him. The last guy that went in there and told him got fired, right? So Kirby's saying, these guys, they start saying stuff, and if they say it, enough people believe. Hey, listen, the guy at the supermarket believed me. I remember one year with Fulmer, I said, hey, man, I'm a little worried going into this year, coach. The people, there's a lot of questions. What are you talking about? Everybody I talk to saying I'm doing a good job. I'm thinking, are you in the same? No, you're not in the same world. And I'm not saying Kirby's there yet. I think Kirby's I think he's aware, but I think right now it is crisis mode. And I think we are seeing crisis management and a coach that's trying to maintain the confidence of the players and telling them, hey, keep your level of buy-in. You can beat Florida running the ball, not turning it over, and not giving up the big play. Edgar, right to you. True or false? Can Georgia win this game primarily running the ball, using the super weapon punter that they like to brag about, and not turning the ball over? Will that game plan beat this Florida team?
I mean, it could. We'll see, because we haven't even talked about like the suspensions, which only really hit the Gators. I mean, one guy, Zach Carter, but he's a force. I mean, he's a good player. He's second team preseason All SEC and sets the edge in the run. And they beat Missouri. Okay. I didn't think Missouri was very good coming into this year, and they weren't good the other night. Missouri's not good. Okay. This is a total step up in talent and coaching. And look, Kirby's been landing 5 stars like nothing and high 4 stars. He's going to have some depth on that defense, and he can coach a defensive game plan as well as just about anybody. So I don't think Dan's going to be fooling him a ton. So running the football against this team is a possibility. They could just try. I remember the year where Florida went and ran for 400 whatever yards with Muschamp. I'm not saying that's happening from Georgia's perspective, but if they can run the football effectively and just keep it away from Kyle Trask, I mean, they can't score from the sideline, right? So they could grind out a win pretty easily. They're favored by 5. I mean, the odds makers are pretty sharp. I don't know, man. I mean, I'm not like just sitting here going, oh, yeah, Georgia, no chance. But their offense is definitely boring. I mean, it's not. I don't think it's going to be a shootout, or really, it's going to be a nail biter maybe. But I don't know that it's going to be an electric football game.
Mike, I think that's the strategy. I think they're hoping that Grantham falls asleep over the play sheet after about 6 runs in a row, and they hit him with a big play. I mean, can you see a Georgia grind out win against Florida, or do you think that Stetson Bennett is going to have another one of those Cinderella moments?
Florida is going to make Stetson Bennett. Everybody knows that's the game plan for Florida's defense. They're going to stack the box and make this quarterback beat them. And I don't know if Georgia can score enough and score often enough for them to beat Florida. And Edgar's right. The odds makers know a lot more than I do. I just know this Gator offense is high powered with Tony and Kyle Trask and all the other weapons they have. I think Georgia's going to have to score some points. And I don't think it's going to be a 13-10 game. No, I think it's going to be a not high scoring, but Georgia's going to have to score in the 30s, I think, to win this game.
Jordan, break it down, man. I know you've already done that. I know you've already played this game in your head and watched the film. Your thoughts on this matchup?
I think watching the film again today of Florida's defensive front, I agree with Edgar. I think that Georgia will have success early against them. Look, Florida's defensive front's not very physical as it is. Most of those defensive tackles are playing two gaps, so they're not really worried as much about penetration as they are about reading where the run key is going. So they don't get a ton of vertical penetration. So I think they will get pushed around, but that's not going to be enough. Florida's offense was good for at least 28 against a full-strength Georgia defense. Florida's offense is going to put up points. And Georgia, yes, wants to make this game slow, wants to limit possessions, which I think they will have success doing early until Florida gets going. And then it's going to be Stetson Bennett trying to keep pace with Kyle Trask, and it's not going to work.
Push is going to come to shove. We're going to find out if Kirby's ready to go to the bench at quarterback. I fully believe that. I don't know if you're going to have a big story to write, if JT Daniels comes riding in off the bench and airs it out like he did at Southern Cal. I mean, this guy was a 5-star, 300-yard games. I watched him for 30 minutes in the scrimmage. This guy's got a gun, man. He gets through his progressions. He reads defenses. Little question about the mobility, but if you got a trigger back there that can make that pre-snap read, that could be a complete game changer. Guys, it's 8:30. I've kept you here all night. I want to thank you for joining us. Jordan Rodgers from the SEC Network. I kept you a full hour, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Edgar, my buddy with the Orlando Sentinel, we're going to be doing some home and home cooking with the writing. 5 things from Edgar, 5 things from me for his paper, and obviously Mike Bianchi, one of the most talented and enjoyable guys. I love reading Mike's stuff. I can't imagine. I wish I could listen to him on radio every day, man. I get busy in the mornings, but Mike, you're killing it, man. So thank you so much for joining me on the show tonight. And doggone it, we didn't get to talk NASCAR this time. Next time.
We'll talk Sterling Marlin's toupee next time.
That's the deal, guys. Hey, that's a wrap for the Ingles on the Beat show tonight, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Dog Nation. We'll be back next week, Monday night, tomorrow, 10 a.m. Brandon Adams with Dog Nation Daily. Tomorrow night, Connor Riley. Thursday night, our great cover for all the Dog Nation staff. Have a great Monday night, everyone.